An insidious plot threatens this fractured kingdom. I have witnessed this darkness firsthand.
Greymoor is this year's big expansion to the Elder Scrolls Online, and we're recently back from a visit into that game world, with fresh new gameplay footage captured from the PC version. If it looks familiar, that's because Greymoor will be taking you back to the land of Skyrim, although this is Skyrim from 1,000 years before you went on your Fusro Dar rampage in the Elder Scrolls V. You'd think after 9 years that would get old. Never does. Anyway, we took a tour of some iconic locations from the land of the Nords to see how they looked 1,000 years before the Dragonborn was yeeting things off cliffs. Check out how these 7 places in Skyrim look different in Greymoor. The new area of world map opened up by the Greymoor expansion only encompasses the northwestern corner of Skyrim as we know it. As a result, the biggest major Skyrim settlement you'll be visiting from the earlier game is Solitude, which is fine because it looks like this. Constructed on an imposing rock arch which must make it a nightmare to secure buildings insurance, Solitude plays a central role in the year-long storyline. In it, your job will be to uncover a conspiracy that threatens the entire city. So you'd better get it sorted in case it causes some sort of time paradox and Solitude also vanishes from your Skyrim save game. Solitude looks pretty similar 1,000 years in the past, with the signature windmills and the opulent blue palace present and correct. The one major difference is that the main keep does appear to have a large circular tower that's missing 1,000 years later in the era of Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Maybe a dragon sat on it or something. Other than that, based on the similarities between the two games, the impressive mountainside castle looks like it has survived the last millennium pretty well. I mean, unless the entire thing is now a replica made of spackle. Greymoor is part of a year-long storyline in the Elder Scrolls Online called the Dark Heart of Skyrim, and they weren't kidding. Not only will you travel underground into the heart of Skyrim, it is indeed dark. I didn't realise they meant it quite so literally. Blackreach is an underground cave system you may have visited in Skyrim, travelling down into the ruins via a system of dwarven lifts. However, Blackreach in the Elder Scrolls Online Greymoor is an entirely different prospect. For a start, it's a much larger area, around 40% of the size of the above ground portion of Skyrim featured here in the Elder Scrolls Online. It's also a brand new part of Blackreach, meaning the Greymoor expansion does offer new places to explore even for series veterans. Rather than a single type of cave, Blackreach now contains more varied biomes and locations. Particular highlights are Dusktown, which is a full mining town in a cavern lit by glowing purple geodes, and Greymoor Keep, an underground vampire castle that is so fabulously gothic that even Dracula himself would probably say, bit much. Place names don't tend to make a great deal of sense. Take New York for example. It looks nothing like York in England, and it's not even that new anymore. Dragon Bridge in the game of Skyrim, by contrast, does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a bridge that's all dragony, next to a village with the same name. The difference is that in the age of Greymoor, Dragon Bridge isn't yet a village. Instead, it's a small military outpost guarding a vital trade route. Rather than a full settlement, it's mainly just a small smattering of tents and some grumbling guards. They haven't even opened the Four Shields Tavern yet, so where am I supposed to get a drink? The bridge itself though is exactly as you remember it, and a recognisable landmark as you're negotiating the landscape. And there is one building you can go inside, the Dragon Bridge Barracks. Hang on, where did you get that beer? In the original Skyrim game, Deepwood Redoubt was a pretty forgettable Nord ruin that looked much the same as any other. There must have been some sort of substantial cave-in the 1,000 years between Elder Scrolls Online and Skyrim the game, because look at it here, all vast underground chambers and majestic ice caverns. Deepwood Redoubt is where you'll start the Elder Scrolls Online if you create a new level 1 character with the Greymoor content installed. In the grand tradition of Elder Scrolls games, you've been imprisoned there, and it's your job to escape. And hey, if you happen to complete a tutorial or two while you're at it, all the better. Oh, and how could I forget, in the sky directly above Deepwood Redoubt, there's a giant harrow storm brewing. Harrow storms, if you're wondering, are a sort of ritual storm that have been popping up across the region and turning people into zombies or rampaging blood fiends. They definitely weren't here in original Skyrim. Pretty sure I'd have remembered something like that. You might recall the quest called Lights Out from the original Skyrim game. That quest tasked you with extinguishing the Solitude lighthouse and causing a ship called the Icerunner to crash into the rocks just outside the city. You might even have felt a little bit bad about that, even though you spent the previous 30 hours murdering bandits.
Is someone there? Thought I'd heard something.
Well, don't worry, because even with the Solitude lighthouse fully operational, in Greymoor several ships have still managed to run aground on this same treacherous stretch of coastline. One of them, the Silver Cormorant, is full of lost, underdressed desert folk who need your help rustling up some grub to help them survive, even though it's really only a 5-minute walk to Solitude. The other shipwreck just has a ghost hanging out in it. Presumably this is the ghost of another wreck survivor who refused to walk. Buddy, you know there's a fast travel system and everything. One of the unique locations in Skyrim was Shadowgreen Cavern, a warm volcanic cave that somehow managed to sustain an entire ecosystem up in the frozen northern reaches of Skyrim. And if you know where to look, because you found it in Elder Scrolls V, you can find it in the Elder Scrolls Online too. Geographically, Shadowgreen Cavern looks much the same as you remember it, but you'll want to pop over there in Elder Scrolls Online because a bunch of dastardly reachmen are planning to blow up the entire place in some sort of magical eruption. Something that would be a really bad time for all the adorable rabbits, bears and squirrels that live there. So your job is to head into the cavern and extinguish all the ritual pyres, saving Shadowgreen from eco-disaster and presumably becoming a hero to all squirrel kind in the process. Bad news is that even 1,000 years ago, this place was still absolutely lousy with Spriggans. You remember, these jerks. Friggin' Spriggans. Chillwind Depths in Elder Scrolls V was about as close as Skyrim got to an Aliens movie. The place was full of disgusting giant bugs, creepy webbing all over the walls, and us muttering "Game over, man, game over" every time we got killed. Chillwind Depths makes an appearance in Greymoor too, though thankfully with this being 1,000 years in the past and with presumably 1,000 years worth of geological activity, it's a larger, more expansive cavern to explore. Less thankfully, that means there's space for more and even bigger insects. Ew. Greymoor also takes place before Chillwind Depths' infamous rising damp problem really took hold, meaning you get to see this spectacular bioluminescent cave without the extreme flooding that you had to negotiate in the original Skyrim game. Just as well, can you imagine how cold that water is? I'm getting chilblains just thinking about it. There you have it, a swift tour of the Skyrim region in the Greymoor expansion coming to the Elder Scrolls Online later this year. Which other Skyrim locations are you hoping to revisit? Let us know in the comments and like and subscribe for more on the Elder Scrolls Online from Outside Xbox. And if you'd like to watch some of our previous adventures in the Elder Scrolls Online, why not click on the videos on screen now? Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.